Hi, today I'm going to tell you about a car that makes me feel mixed emotions. The hero of this episode is the new Jeep Grand Cherokee. This model doesn't have as rich a history as the Wrangler because it was introduced in 1992. Today we are dealing with the fifth generation. You can immediately see that the car is bigger than its predecessor. The difference in length is 15 centimeters, though it seems as if it was even more than that. The Jeep Grand Cherokee is 4.91 meters long, 2.15 meters wide, and wheelbase is 2.96 meters. The turning circle measures 11.7 meters. The car looks very good. The front makes the car seems even wider, and I am a big fan of it. I like this massiveness and overall proportions of the bodywork. However, I am not a fan of the lack of engine choices. Everyone knows where it comes from and not much will change in this regard. The European Union will not let go. It's a pity because this car on other markets is still available with a 3.6-liter V6 as well as a 5.7-liter V8. In Europe, you can only get the Grand Cherokee with a 2-liter 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid drivetrain which has a total output of 380 horsepower. It may sound good on paper, but I'll come back to the sound in a second. It's hard to hide that when we talk about Jeep, we have a robust four-wheel drive and extraordinary off-road capabilities in mind. In the case of the new Grand Cherokee, we don't lose anything of that. I must admit that when I saw this car and I realized what the previous generation was capable of off-road, my imagination hung for a moment, because the manufacturer defines the latest generation as the most luxurious. After a while, however, it came to me that Grand Cherokee always had such aspirations, and only over the years owners of older generations modified their cars and began to take them hard off-roading. Will we also see the fifth generation in a dozen years equipped with steel bumpers wading in the swamp? I don't know, but I know that the all-wheel drive system in this car is still great. Depending on the version of the equipment, you get the Quadra Track or Quadra Drive system. The latter is equipped with a rear electronic limited slip differential. In the Trailhawk version, we have a disconnecting front stabilizer. The test car was equipped with Quadra Drive. In the case of a front wheel slip, the wheel losing traction is braked and torque is being transferred where it should. It was especially the case in a rather demanding place for the drive, where conditions forced maximum axle articulation. Despite the road tires, the Jeep coped very well. Regardless of the selected driving mode, I managed to drive up the hill every time. The optional air suspension can increase the clearance to even 27.5 centimeters, providing a wading depth of 61 centimeters. Even in this moderately demanding terrain, I was afraid that I would damage the plastic element in the front of the bumper. Fortunately, it is prepared for contact with obstacles and will not break at first given chance. The new Jeep Grand Cherokee drives quite specifically, but that doesn't mean it's bad. No, I don't mean that. It's just that the manufacturers are getting us used to a slightly different driving impression behind the wheel. This car weighs about 2.5 tons and you can feel it while driving. However, many modern cars in their way of driving do not reveal that we are driving a big and heavy car. Here it is quite the opposite. However, this does not mean that this is something bad. If someone is looking for some grace in the way of driving, born from a small city SUV, he will not find it here. The steering wheel has quite some resistance. We can change the steering power settings, but it doesn't change much, even in comfort mode. I think it's not a disadvantage of this car, but just its feature. Just like the sensitive lane assistant, which constantly reminds me that I'm not driving in my lane, although I'm driving neatly, keeping to the right lane. It irritates me a little. The line is well drawn. I don't know what's going on. I'll turn it off in a moment because I can't bear it anymore. This car can be dynamic. Acceleration from 0 to 100 km per hour in just over 6 seconds is a good result with these dimensions. However, the character of this car does not encourage to push it on the road. Power is available, but don't expect any sportiness. Even though we have a hybrid system under the hood, do not expect low fuel consumption. When the battery is discharged, we still have electric support, but not much. You can see it on the screen, where the energy flow of the drivetrain is shown. Even if we start to accelerate gently, the combustion engine kicks in after a while. Driving around the city, you should expect a consumption of 10-12 liters per 100 kilometers. At 90 kilometers per hour, Jeep uses from 6 to 6.5 liters. Increasing the speed to 110 km per hour, consumption will jump to 9 liters per 100 km. At highway speeds, you should expect the results of driving around the city. Of course, everything will change when we have a charged battery and drive in hybrid mode. The combustion engine will start only sometimes. Then we will actually see catalog values. Jeep claims less than 3 liters per 100 km. In these circumstances, usage of the electric engine is much greater. We can accelerate to higher speeds, and if we do not press the gas too hard, it's possible to drive in electric mode all the time. It depends only on the style of our driving whether fuel consumption will be at the level of 2 liters per 100 kilometers or 5. We can also force driving in electric mode, but when we press the gas pedal hard, the combustion engine will start. The third option is e-save, which works in two ways. We can keep the battery level close to the defined charging level, although the car will use it all the time to a small extent. Alternatively, can also charge it using the combustion engine, which clearly increases the fuel appetite. When I plugged the car to a public charger, it took less than 3 hours to fill up the battery. Jeep declares that the Grand Cherokee can cover 48 kilometers on electricity alone. I managed to drive even a little more, in urban conditions with a temperature between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius. I think that not everyone will like the way this car switches between its power sources. When the combustion engine kicks in, we feel such an uncomfortable jerk. We also hear that it immediately revs rather high. It is worth to remember that the electric motor is located in front of the gearbox. Later, the torque hits the wheels in a classic way using the drive shafts. I think that the manufacturer should try a little more in this matter, because when we operate the gas dynamically, the combustion engine will turn on and off. We will switch to electric power. Then these jerks can be really disturbing. Not everyone will like the sound of a turbocharged 2-liter engine, which when turning on the revs will try to do everything in its power to transfer the maximum torque to the wheels. I think it will be a kind of dissonance for the driver between what he sees when getting in the car and what he hears when the engine is running. I think that in the matter of muffling the engine compartment, the manufacturer should try harder to save us from this unpleasant experience. I do not want to exaggerate with my complaint, because probably many customers will not look for joy in this car from the sound of the engine, but will focus on luxury and looks, and this can make an impression. I appreciate that we have this model on the market, but I still feel a slight dissonance associated with the only available drive unit. I don't quite like the suspension work in this car. When the road is flat, there is no problem, but when some small bumps appear on it, disturbing sounds will reach our ears, as if the tip of the steering rod needed a replacement. It's a similar story when driving over speed bumps. We will hear such deaf hits from the rear suspension. It seems to me that in a fully functional car with a mileage of less than 4,000 kilometers, such sounds are unacceptable. Now I will show you what the interior of the new Jeep Grand Cherokee looks like. I am a fan of this car. I like how it looks inside. It is very American. We have wood, which is wood, and we have a lot of leather, which is real leather, not some eco-plastic. And feel it when we take a seat because it all smells beautiful. Besides, it is perfectly finished. Everything is soft. Everything is well fitted. Sometimes, maybe if I'm going to pull something maliciously, there will be some sound, but it is soft, pleasant to the eye, and pleasant to the touch. Even here we get leather, and also the door bins are covered in leather, which doesn't happen too often. Stitchings, wooden panels, all looks and feels nice. As already shown, the pocket in the door is large. I think that a 1.5-liter bottle can easily fit here. The glove box is finished with a flock material. It's not huge, but it's enough. Here we have a phone holder. We can charge it wirelessly. There are also 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB older type ports, a UX input, HDMI port, and a 12V socket. Here we have 2 cup holders. Under the armrest there are 2 holders, one smaller and the second one is deeper. Everything is soft finished. There are no USB ports or 12-volt socket inside. What is interesting is the screen for the passenger. The driver does not see what is going on there. That's to prevent him from any disturbance. However, from the perspective of the passenger, you can see everything. The aforementioned HDMI port can be used to connect the device to the car display videos for the passenger during the trip. I will now admire the physical buttons, which are a lot here. We use them to operate the most important functions of the car. Here we have one set of buttons. Here, as usual, air conditioning, multimedia. We select this knob to switch the gearbox. We can adjust the height of the suspension, the drive mode. Everything is at hand and the operation is very simple and pleasant. It's the same with the buttons on the steering wheel. They are clearly marked and easy to operate. No need for turning to the screen actually. The multimedia system works fine and has a nice interface. Sometimes it can hang for a moment, but it rarely happens to him. In general, it is readable and works very well. What the driver sees on the virtual instrument cluster may be a little scary at first. There is a lot of information, but it is worth clicking through everything to be aware of what information we can display here. There can be a lot of information, but when we get used to it, I think it will stop scaring us. Now it's time to take a seat in the second row, and here too Jeep did not save on finishing. Leather, wood, stitching, everything is soft to the touch, looks nice. Besides, there is a lot of space here. When a driver will sit in front of us, let's say 170, 180 centimeters, we have a lot of space. Even if a basketball player sat here, the passenger in the back would also have a lot of legroom. As for the practical dimension, the pocket in the door is not too big. There is also a pocket behind the seat. This is an interesting element. I think you can hang a shopping bag on it as long as it's not too heavy. Here we have air vents, USB-C ports, and two older type USB-A ports, a 230 volt output. Air vents are here as well as on the B pillars. The armrest is soft with two cup holders and of course ISOFIX buckles. And this is how the trunk looks like. We have a roller blind here which is not very comfortable because you have to hit it from one side or the other. It's a matter of getting used to it. The capacity of this trunk is 533 liters, and when we add the second row of seats, we will have almost 1500 liters of space. We have here some hooks for mounting the net. Here we have a hook for shopping bags. Here too, but it is also an emergency opening of the fuel filler. Next is a 12-volt socket, and that's it. Under the floor there is a lot of space, for example for charging cables and a spare wheel. Here is a little hidden feature. You can see the silhouettes of all the Grand Cherokees. The Jeep Grand Cherokee starts from 400,000 PLN. The tested configuration called Summit Reserve costs 485,000 PLN. I have a little dilemma with this car because it looks very good. I love its interior, visually as well as the finish quality, but I'm a bit bothered by sounds of the engine and when driving dynamically, the rather harsh switching between electric and hybrid propulsion. Especially concerning the drive unit, I would like to go back in time to the moment when manufacturers were allowed to offer bigger engines in the EU. Let me know what you think about this car. If you like the movie, leave a thumbs up and see you in the next tests.